Hey, welcome to the Off-Road Insiders podcast. Woo, it only took us, 23 episodes for us to get that right?
Yeah, we remembered to actually introduce the show.
Right, I'm Tammy, aka G Mama, and
I'm
right
Nate,
above me is Nate.
known as SWB Crawler. I don't know why. I don't know what it is, but ever since my kids started using it, I hate the term AKA. I don't know why.
Oh, okay, well,
Because they use it every 3 seconds. AKA, AKA. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm getting to be an old man.
Yeah, you're the guy. Get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn.
Leave my chickens alone.
Exactly, man.
Yeah.
Neighbors suck.
Yeah, they do.
Anyway, for those of you watching live, we're trying a new video format. So if you're on mobile, this will hopefully be a lot easier for you to watch. We realize that there's probably a lot of mobile watchers and, this might be nice for them. So if you like it, let us know. If you hate it, also let us know. And if we get more hate than love, we'll switch back. That sounds good?
Is
it's totally
perfect,
scientific.
Yeah, perfect for reels, since that's the way our society is going.
That's totally why we did it.
Yeah.
We did it for all the youths.
Yes.
All the kids.
All the kids listen to these old people here. So Nate, what have you been up to since we were just on last week?
We were
Nate with Dirt Lifestyle, which I have gotten so many compliments on that podcast. A lot of people reached out to me and said it was great.
I tell you what, most people, they get someone like Dirt Lifestyle Nate on their show, and all they want to talk about is his shop, his off-road stuff, his whatever. Sometimes it's fun to get stuff that's unrelated, stuff that you wouldn't normally get from him, and that's exactly what we did for 2 hours.
Right. we learned about his great grandfather. And,
yeah, that was awesome.
A lot of cool stuff.
That was awesome.
It was really good. So check back. It's episode 22. If you're listening now, you can go back and listen to that after you're done listening to us tonight. So it was really good. Really good.
Videos
interview.
Is in the chat already shaking his fist at our new format. He says it's hard to get to the comments. Sorry about that. But we're not going to change it now. You'll have to live with it for this episode. Maybe we'll switch back next time. All right. So I've been a little busy. I picked up 2 things that will eventually end up on my channel. I was going to do one last weekend, but I ran out of time. And that is, Tammy, you talked about these door liners. I'm showing them on screen right now for folks that are watching live. These Delrin inserts for the hinges on the JKU. I was debating getting them for the TJ as well, but I realized that the TJ doesn't have any trouble with the door hinges, and I'm wondering if it does not suffer from the same problem.
Right.
Does it not have the same liners?
The aluminum liners don't mesh well with the steel hinge pins.
Yeah.
So if you know anything about chemical metals.
Yeah, I even looked up the name of it. There was a name. It's galvanolysis or something like that. That's totally the wrong word. It has galvanization or galvan something.
Yeah.
There's a word for this. I'm going to look it up while you're talking.
Yeah. But when you're speaking about hinges, door hinges, and it sets me off. I posted videos. The guys at the shop are helping me get my doors off, and you have to get those aluminum sleeves out, and mine were so corroded. Yes, it's corrosion, not rust. Corrosion is a little white. It has white, and it's because the 2 metals don't mesh well together. Anyway, so they're pounding it out, and so I have 2 different sets of videos running on my social media and on TNT's social media because the guys at the shop helped me take them off, and the views are up over 600,000, and everybody is commenting, and everybody thinks they know everything there is to know about everything.
They're on the internet. They know everything.
Oh, it's taking all my energy not to comment to everyone. People are saying it's rust, not corrosion. Why are you hammering the Jeep? You're going to put dents in it.
And Wikipedia, which brings science to the equation, not opinion, calls it galvanic corrosion. Yes. So I was close. I knew it had galvan something in it. Galvanic corrosion, not rust. Galvanic corrosion. Corrosion and rust are similar, but they're not the same thing.
And everyone's like, you're supposed to maintain your door hinges. And I'm like, so I got out my my Jeep manual here. See, for those of you who
Yeah,
are watching.
and that looks pretty beat.
Yeah,
How thick is that thing? I don't even know if I've ever looked at ours. Wow, that's a thick manual.
Yeah. So, and I even got a little bit of mold from getting. Anyway, I've read through it cover to cover twice now, and there is nothing in the Jeep manual that says you need to do maintenance on those door hinges. You really kind of should maybe keep grease in there because the grease might help prevent. And you can use marine grease. You can use
Yeah.
grease. Helps prevent the aluminum and steel from corroding. But just to say, you don't.
Corrosion.
Jeep doesn't say you're supposed to maintain your door hinges.
Yeah, in fact, they put there's a like a nut bolt. I don't know. It's like a weird female bolt. How to describe that on the hinge so that
Underneath.
And it's got a Torx key.
Yes.
Right. So it really feels like they tossed us a softball and said, yes, you can still take off the doors, but most people aren't going to take that thing off. Right.
Correct.
They're going to leave the doors on. So the idea of telling people that of accusing you of having known you should have been maintaining them. I don't know. It's not in the owner's manual either.
No, it's not. So the other thing is, I said the word wrong. The hinge, the material it's made out of, I think I called it Delarin or something, Darylin, or
That's
I
pretty
don't
damn
know.
close.
But anyway, so of course, everybody's gotta, call me out. So, but they're plastics. It should say, I think it's Delrin.
It's Delrin, Delrin. I know that because it's what I looked up, but I'm trying to see if it says it on the box. It doesn't seem to.
But Delrin is some sort of hard composite plastic, which is not going to form any sort of chemical reaction.
Yeah.
So you should be safe with those hinges.
Did you know? Because I intend to make a video about these things, and I was going to include it with some science, some facts, right? Did you know that the Statue of Liberty suffers from this problem?
Oh.
The outside skin of the Statue of Liberty is copper, of course, which is why it's all green. Because it used to, and initially it was copper, and copper, what happens to copper when it's out in the elements? It turns green. The inside is all wrought iron, the whole framework on the inside.
Right.
So wherever the copper and the wrought iron are in contact with each other, it has started to corrode in the same way that our doors do.
Interesting.
There was some kind of a shellac that was put on there when it was first built. Over the years, that has kind of worn away or whatever.
Right.
Or I don't know what happens, flaked off or something. For whatever reason, it's no longer there. And they've had to start treating the inside of the Statue of Liberty for the exact same thing, galvanic corrosion. So our Jeeps have a link to the Statue of Liberty.
There you go. Just when you do the video, if you put it on TikTok, make sure you clarify that there's nothing in the manual that states you have to maintain your door hinges.
So I'll include that. I'll say, and Tammy told me that I have to say this.
And make sure you say the word Delrin properly so you don't get called out.
Internet trolls are going to troll. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and just got to ignore them.
And I mentioned two things. The other was a case spreader. If you're familiar, you know what a case spreader is?
Yes.
Okay. So anyone who's listening that doesn't know what a case spreader is, I have these Dana 60s that I want to build. One thing I'm going to do is put lockers in them. And to put lockers in, you have to take the carrier out of the axle housing, which you can do with like pry bars and stuff. But everyone I've talked to that says the right way to do it is really to have a case spreader. Case spreader is from like Dana or from, I looked up Yukon Gear and Axle. They're like $700. Now, if you're unfamiliar with
$700,
yeah, they're ridiculous.
Ooh, can you rent them?
If you look at what a case spreader is, it's basically a framework of like two pieces of steel that are braced, and then the top is usually either a thick rod or a piece of tube or something, and then the bottom is two separate pieces that has a threaded thing in the middle, and then it fits over the case of your axle, and then you can turn the nut on the thing and it will spread the case so you can pull the carrier out. Doesn't sound that complicated. So I'm like, why in the heck are these so expensive? Now, obviously they have to be made of high quality steel. They're probably not a high
Right.
demand item. Maybe that's why they're expensive. I don't know. But I'm like, I don't want to spend $700 on a case spreader. I'm not going to be doing 6 axles a week because I'm going to
No.
shop. I'm going to use
Right.
this a couple times in my lifetime. I looked on Amazon and found one for $110.
Oh. Well,
Says
you'll
it
have
works on the
to-
Dana 60, has
You'll have
great
to do a
reviews.
video.
I'm going to do a video.
Yeah.
As long as I don't die trying to use it. If I die
Right.
trying to use it,
Just
then
make
don't
sure you're
buy it.
recording.
Okay?
Just make
Yeah.
sure you're recording and
Yeah, don't buy the $110 case spreader on Amazon if Nate dies.
right.
But yeah, I've seen so many off-road related YouTube channels or people doing how-tos on axles where they do not have a case spreader because it's so cost prohibitive. And either they've never looked or they don't trust or they know better than to buy the $110 one on Amazon. We'll find out.
Stay tuned to Nate's YouTube channel.
Yeah, maybe I'll live stream
Yeah.
it so you guys can tell if it goes catastrophically wrong. Don't buy that one.
So I just have a few things. As you can tell, if you're watching, it's a tip for Go Topless Day, which was National Go Topless Day was Saturday. Don't forget your sunscreen. I got a little charred from the sun. I look like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. But we had Go Topless Day in Cheyenne. Woo woo. Here's a picture of the flag that flew all over the United States. If
There
you're
you go.
watching, if you're listening, you can go over to our YouTube channel and you can see the pictures I'm sharing. But I kind of like to call it, instead of Go Topless Day, we need to call it Duckapalooza.
My
Look at
gosh.
these people. This is how they drive around. They have little stickers to hold the ducks in place. And then my favorite Jeep, I'm considering this as a accessory on mine. Purple eyelashes instead of these pink ones.
Oh, geez. Do not put eyelashes on your Jeep,
Yeah.
Tammy. I may
No,
have to
I-
find a different co-host if you do.
No, I won't. I'm just kind of joking. But anyway, that was Go Topless Day in Cheyenne. We had about 50 Jeeps. So it was pretty fun.
I'm going to try to find a link to this. It's about the ducks. I'm not trying to steal your chat section.
That's
here.
right.
I need to find a link to this maybe after the show and link it in the show notes. But I read a post just earlier this week on the Wrangler subreddit. If you're familiar with Reddit, it's like
Right.
the largest message forum in the world that it's divided into subreddits that are topical, right? And this one is it's r/Wrangler. It's the subreddit for Wranglers. And this guy was lamenting the ducks. He basically titled it "F the Ducks," right?
Oh,
because
There are
he
duck
thinks,
haters for sure.
well, he has reasons, right? He's like, the ducks were cool, but and this is a reference to a show that maybe some of our listeners have never seen, but he says the ducks have jumped the shark. He thinks that. Are you familiar with the term "jump the shark"?
No.
It was in like one of the last seasons of Happy Days. There was a scene where they were like
Yes.
jumped a shark. Yeah.
Yes.
So apparently it was twice. He did it twice. Anyway, it was largely seen as like the death of the show. Like, this is stupid. Why is he jumping a shark?
Yeah.
So the term "jumped the shark" is used to describe
Interesting.
something that has outlived
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Its usefulness.
But the point I was
was
trying to
being
make was
useful.
somebody commented and they're like, because this guy was like, everybody that's got a Wrangler has 128 ducks on their dashboard. And somebody made a really interesting comment. They said, if you've got 128 ducks on your dashboard, you've kind of missed the point.
Correct.
The point is that
To
you
pass it on.
give ducks, not receive ducks. You've sort of missed, like, this is all about receiving now than giving, kind of like the
Right.
spirit of Christmas, right?
Correct.
It's not about getting things, it's about giving things to people that you love. Well, in this case, it's about sharing the ducks with people that have cool Jeeps or whatever, right? So I guess that's, in a lot of ways, maybe that means, yes, the ducks have jumped the shark. Because how many Jeeps do you see riding around with like 128 ducks on the
Right.
dashboard? So
Correct.
anyway,
crazy.
just
Out of
my
control.
thoughts on the ducks. You can get back to your chat now.
Um, I just wanted to share. I have a video up on my YouTube channel. I'm testing out a Molly tailgate table. A company sent it to me. I'm kind of excited to use that when I'm out camping, overlanding, or just going hiking and having a little picnic. Um, the other one, it hasn't dropped yet on my YouTube channel. And this is breaking news, heard here first on the Off Road Insiders podcast. A company out of Virginia, Maxa, they do a bushcraft chef knife. And they reached out to me and asked if I would test it out. I'm going to test it out. You can use it in the kitchen. You can use it in the campsite kitchen. You can even use it to make kindling and tinder for your fire. It has a little bottle opener. Anyway, there is a coupon code Jeep Mama 15. There will be a link in the show notes if you want to test it out before I do my final review, which I'm going to be testing it out all over this summer. They say you can chop the wood and then still cut in the kitchen.
I want you to chop down a tree with it.
I'll find a tree like this big. This big.
Well, no, so I mean, I love a good knife. I absolutely love a
Right.
good knife. And the knife, well, this is a good example. The knife that I have carried, I don't hunt anymore because my dad kind of aged out, and hunting alone is a little boring for me. But the 20 years that I hunted, I carried the Buck 110, which is a folding classic hunting knife, right? It's, I don't know, maybe a 4 or 5 inch blade. That thing will cut through a tree if you need it to, not like a big tree, but if you needed to like cut the crook of a branch off, it'll
Right.
cut through the pelvic bone of a deer. Sorry, not trying to get too graphic here, but it's a thing you have to do when you harvest a
Right.
deer. Awesome knife. I love that thing. Funny
Now,
thing.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. I was
No,
going to say, somebody shared a video with me just the other day that Buck, apparently way back in the day, had an ad campaign that said that you could hammer the Buck knife through a nail.
Oh.
And they tried it and broke the blade on the Buck knife. So obviously
Wow.
that's not true anymore. But
Right. So,
I
and
love
one
that
thing,
knife. It's a great knife.
one thing I was reading on their website, the FAQ, and it was about sharpening. And I learned a little something new about sharpening your knife versus honing it. And really, you should be honing your knives, even your kitchen knives, every 3 to 4 times you use them. That's what the
Yeah.
internet says anyway. I had no idea.
The edge of a knife is a super delicate thing.
Yeah.
Even cutting the softest of things with it,
Yeah.
that edge will dull. We used to, again, hunting story. I used to hunt archery as well. Our broadheads, we used to sharpen them every season, even if we didn't fire the arrows, because just resting in the quiver, they would lose their edge and they'd be
Yep.
slightly duller. And anyone, I mean, obviously you're killing an animal, right? Which is not great for the animal, but the last thing you want to do is like make that animal suffer.
Suffer.
So
Correct.
the sharper
Yep.
you make that blade, the better a cut it's going to make, and the
Right.
less chance you're going to have of wounding a deer. Because with archery, it's really easy to wound a deer, and it's kind of sad when
Yeah,
when the
you
deer
don't.
gets away and it's injured
Yeah,
and
in
it's going to
pain.
suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, go over to my blog this week too if you can't find the show notes, and I'll have a link in my blog when it goes live, hopefully Thursday, I think. But then hopefully
Cool.
at the end of the summer, we'll have video of me chopping down a tree with my bushcraft chef knife.
I'm looking forward to it. I like.
Yeah.
I also like good kitchen knives, which is why I mentioned the knives at all.
Yeah.
Because kitchen knives, like
Yep.
really good ones, really heavy, feel good in the hand. Yeah.
Yep.
I
Yep.
like a good knife.
So,
Jeep Mama 15.
yep. MOMMA.
Cool. All right. Should we like go ahead and get on to our
Yeah.
actual?
Oh,
Oh
we
no, we
kind
have
of-
we have
Oh,
community
we have
corner.
community corner.
I'm gonna
Who's
just mention
community
this
corner?
quick, because there's not a whole lot to talk about here. We talked about when Nate was on last week. We talked about the Matt's Off-Road Recovery Games, I
Yep.
think they're called, or
Yep.
Matt's Off-Road Games or whatever.
Yep.
And I had asked him, like, is that live yet? Because I didn't see it go live. And it was. It's live for like a month already.
Oh,
So if you didn't see it, I put a link to it in the community corner of the
right.
notes today. It was actually kind of a crazy time. They had somebody, Light Bright, actually. She Brittany had her buggy there. And one of the challenges they had was they paired, well, Nate was talking about this. They paired an off-road YouTuber with a non-off-road YouTuber.
Right.
And the non-off-road YouTuber had to drive the rig and the off-road YouTuber had to spot them. Well, because Brittany's buggy is so like point and shoot, they decided to make it harder and she blindfolded the guy and had him going up some crazy obstacle.
So
Blindfolded.
now, doesn't her husband drive the Jeep typically?
They both drive.
Oh, they do.
They get a lot of.
I don't watch them. Sorry.
I don't watch them that frequently anymore either because they've gotten like. They were relatable when they started because they were just like a couple in a Jeep JL driving around the country doing awesome things with it, right? But as they got more popular, they had to ratchet the game up, and as the game ratcheted up, they got totally unrelatable to me, and I don't even. Sometimes I'll watch their stuff because there's good stuff. Especially when they had the shop videos, they had, I forget his name now. They had a guy living with them that was basically in their shop doing stuff. And they had like he was really good at what he did. And he was making all kinds of stuff and modifications. And that was fun to watch. I'm really chatty tonight. I'm sorry, Tammy. I think it's the bourbon.
How much have you had so far? Because it was kind of full when we started.
Only about half of it, but I better slow down because there's like,
We're
still half a show to go through.
Yeah. So Community Corner, Matt's Off-Road Recovery.
Yep.
And don't forget, you guys, you can check us out on offroadinsiders.com. We're on Instagram and Facebook, Off-Road Insiders. And if you have any suggestions, comments, you can email us at offroadinsiders@gmail.com.
Yeah. I don't think we've ever gotten an email there.
No, probably not.
Once or twice.
People just like to make comments. People like to comment. People don't. Email's kind of like a rotary phone now.
We need feedback from folks. Yeah. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? When I still worked as, well, maybe some people on the show don't know this. I used to work as a systems administrator, and one of my jobs was to run email services, right? And I remember sitting down with my boss like a decade ago, and we were just like spitballing about what the future was going to look like. And we sort of agreed that there will be a day when email is not the primary mode of communication for people on the internet. They'll be using social or they'll be using some kind of chat. And I think we're getting there.
Yep.
I think we're actually getting there.
Agree.
If you use email, let us know. I want to hear about it. Email us.
Yeah. So tonight, we're going to talk about protecting your Jeep skid plates. Protection.
I tell you what, I spent a very long time wheeling with no skid plates because I don't know.
Now, on your LJ, right? LJ, did it have factory? Did it come with factory skid plates?
Only the belly pan that's under the transmission, which is only kind of a skid plate.
Huh.
Like it's like a skid plate, I guess.
Right.
It protects the transmission, but not nearly as well as a aftermarket skid plate would.
Right.
But I wheeled with that on the LJ for years. There was no protection under the oil pan. And I think I mentioned this on our last show. I had a dent in my oil pan for years over some stupid mistake. It didn't puncture it, but it did dent it.
Right.
It was like that for a long time before I did my, when I have a series of videos about when I did the valve cover gasket, the oil pan gasket, and the rear main seal on my engine. And when I did that, I finally replaced the oil pan and put on an engine skid finally.
Right. So the JK Jeep likes to say it has skid plates. It has a gas tank skid, an evap canister skid, and I think that's it, right?
The older ones didn't even have the evap canister skid.
Oh,
it was actually
did
a really
they even
big...
have an evap canister back then?
It did.
It did. Okay.
No, I mean the older JKs. So I don't know what year they switched it. Ours is 2014 and it has it. But I was wheeling with a guy at the Jamboree who actually broke off his evap canister because there was no skid plate on there, and his was like a 2011, I think. So, but yeah, it's broken off, or it can be broken off. He drove it the rest of the day without the evap canister. We kind of told him that's probably a bad idea, but he's like, no, we're fine. Okay.
Video
does
said
not have a
JK
gas
does
tank
not.
skid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mine Jeep calls mine a gas tank skid.
Well, okay, so it has a metal framework that is
Correct.
underneath the gas tank, similar to the TJ. I don't know if I'd call it a skid either. It's paper thin. That is true.
Yeah.
The one on the LJ, I replaced it just a couple months ago, maybe a year ago at this point, with a Metal Cloak skid, an actual skid. And the one I took off, I had to cut the gas tank out of it. That's how beat up it was.
Yikes. Yeah, mine is pretty dented.
Yeah.
I'm looking. I'll have to break out. I still have the sticker, like when you go buy a vehicle, it has, I don't know what it's called. The sticker that has all the stuff that your
The window
vehicle.
sticker?
Yeah. And it lists like all the different things that specific vehicle comes with. I'll have to get that out and look at it.
Did they perhaps have a beefed up one on the Rubicon? I don't know that much about the JK Rubicon.
Yeah, I know mine has something because it's dented. My gas tank holder looks like a roller coaster. Yeah, it does.
Well, my control arms, my factory control arms, when I took them off, looked like bananas. So
yeah. I'll have to look at see exactly what they call it, but I'm pretty sure it's some form of a skid.
yeah, they may advertise it as a skid plate, and I'm sure
Right.
that there are companies that make off-road capable vehicles that do come with legitimate skid plates underneath them from the factory. But I think you can get Mopar aftermarket skid plates.
Yeah.
With the Jeep, but I don't think they ever came factory on any model. I could be wrong, but not a true skid.
Correct. Which, when you're out shopping around, there's a lot of things you need to consider, depending on what kind of off-roading you do. And, there's weight issues to consider, how you want to protect it. And we're going to kind of talk about that.
Yeah.
If you
So
wanna
I
go
guess
first, yeah, you can go first.
let's start with what we think is most important to put skid plates on, and then we can go up from there. Because I feel like you can buy skid plates for like any component of the Jeep Wrangler at this point, and probably other brands that are off-roady, right? Some of them seem silly, some of them seem very helpful, right? So let's just start at the lowest common denominator, which would be your differentials, right? Both your front and your rear axle. The axle housings themselves are usually pretty beefy. They're made out of things like cast steel or cast iron. I guess it's steel at this point. The tubes are usually pretty thick, although with the Dana 30, they get kind of thin. But if you've got a 44 and newer, they're pretty thick, right? I wouldn't totally abuse a 44, but once you get into like the Dana 60 and larger range, they're pretty thick. So I wouldn't worry too much about the tubes and the housing, but they do make skid plates for the housing. You can get a skid plate that'll like bolt onto the bottom of a housing. So if you're that worried about it, you can do that. But the big thing you want to worry about is the differential cover.
Correct.
So the cover of your differential is just stamped steel. It's real thin. I don't know how thin it is, but it's thin. If you take your diff cover off sometime, you'll see it is, I wouldn't call it paper thin, but it's thin. It's really not meant to protect things other than like sticks, weeds, things like that. It's going to deflect those. It'll of course protect it from the elements. But if you're going to hit that into a rock, it's going to dent or put a hole in it. And you definitely want to think about that. Sorry, go ahead.
The other thing about the factory on the JKs anyway, it hangs down just a little bit lower and there's like a little lip. And if you hit it just right, you can rip that whole thing right off. And that's one of the reasons I upgraded mine.
You can shave that if you don't want to upgrade your covers just yet. You can just like take a grinder and kind of zip that lip off.
Yeah, I never thought of that.
Just make sure that when you do so, you don't like loosen the cover at all, because then you'll have to reseal the cover. So maybe it's best to take the cover off and zip it off and then redo the seal. Up to you how you want to do that. Right. However, if you're going to be taking the cover off, spend the money and get a diff cover.
Yeah.
Like get a whole, like they've been making, a lot of companies make them now. Yours are what, Riddler?
Yep.
Riddler was really popular when you were doing them. Poison Spider was making them. Is Poison Spider even around anymore? Are
I
they like
don't
officially
know.
gone now?
I think they're gone.
They had a really good diff cover, but there's a ton of companies now. Curry, I think, makes
Mhm.
one. Those are like the big names. You can probably find one for $50 on Amazon too. Um, so you can get them. They're basically made of a really thick cast that will
Mhm.
be a lot
Cast
more
iron.
resistant
Yeah.
to that kind of thing. I always liked, and I don't see these anymore. No one makes them anymore. On my YJ, I had things that were made by a company called 4X Doctor, which, as far as I know,
Mm.
is out of business now. But they were like a cage that went on the lower half
I
of
think I know what you're talking
the
about. Yeah.
diff and had um, just basically tube that went down to the bottom, and they just bolted right on top of the factory diff cover. I loved those. They took so much abuse, never failed me, but you can't find them anymore. I'm tempted to make some for the 60s just because I'm curious if I could make some, and two, I loved them. They were great,
Right.
but they just don't make them anymore. So if anybody knows a company that makes those, let me know. But it made it look like a football helmet is probably the best way I can describe it. It looked like the sort of cage that's over the mouth of
Right.
a football helmet.
Like a goalie mask or a football
Yeah.
helmet. Yeah.
Yeah. I loved those. I love those things. I had them on the front and the rear on the YJ, and they took so much abuse. Never a problem. And they were cheaper than buying these big cast covers. Probably lighter too.
So another place I feel like kind of gets caught up on stuff are your rear control arms, the lower control arms.
Yeah.
Mine just got beat up. So when I was in Maryland at Adrenaline Off Road, Jeff said, "Hey, I have these laying around. Do you want us to weld them on?" And it's a good thing because I get hung up on those all the time. And which a
So
tip
the
is when you're out wheeling is to take your two side mirrors and turn them and watch your back tires. Because people, once they go over that first rock or that first whatever you're going over, you're like, oh, I'm clear. But no, you're not. You still have that back end
the other
to
thing
watch
is
out for.
the front control arms. If you hit them, they generally stop forward momentum, right? So you're just stopped
Right.
because they're not sloped. They're just like they hang down and then they slope up toward the vehicle on the rear side, on the departure side. So they still take a decent amount of abuse, but you don't generally when you hit those, you know it and you stop and correct, right? With the rear, because of the way the control arms themselves lead to the axle, it's a lot more common that if you hit even the control arm, it'll slide down the arm, slide across the lower mount, right? And you're like, oh, cool, I made it over. Well, you did a ton of damage to that. Not
Mm-hmm.
damage that's going to leave you stranded on the trail, but over time, it will eventually, damage that part.
Right.
So not just the control arm mount, because you can get a skid plate for that mount. The arm itself. That's what I was talking about. How my rear control arms looked like bananas when I took them off because they'd taken so much abuse, right?
Yep.
That the factory ones on the LJ are just like on the JK. They're like a boxed tube, like rectangular tube steel. On the LJ, they were like this pressed thing that was stamped. Looks like a big upside down U, right? So as they got hit, they started to like bend inward, and yeah, it was not good. But you can not only buy aftermarket control arms that are stronger, they'll hold up more. You can sleeve them if you want them even further. You can take like a U piece of steel and
Mm-hmm.
put it on the bottom of the control arm and weld that on there, and that'll give you that much more resistance, to things abused. Because the rear control arms and the rear control arm mounts, the rear shock mounts, the rear axle, they all take so much more abuse than the front, in my opinion, just because of
Yeah,
what I was describing.
I think so. I think so. What other? Let's see. We got control arms, diff covers, the undercarriage.
Yeah, so moving up, we would talk next about the gas tank and the transmission belly pan. And this is going to depend on what vehicle you're off-roading and how these things are all laid out, right? Most vehicles, the transmission is going to be sort of toward the middle of the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, after your tires have cleared a thing, that's where you come down, right? And if your transmission's exposed, especially with automatic transmissions, they have that big pan usually on the bottom where all the fluid sits. If you hit that pan on a rock,
Ooh,
you're done.
Yeah.
You are just done. It may not ruin your transmission, but you ain't moving with no automatic transmission fluid in that transmission. It just stops. You don't go anywhere. So you want to protect that. Even the LJ came with a plate that was underneath that. And when I took it off because it was so damaged, I'm like, yeah, there ain't no way I can go without this, right? Because that pan is right there.
And
Coolant lines video says in chat, that's true too. The coolant lines are another thing you don't want to make sure are not destroyed. On the Jeep, they're pretty well tucked up in there, but if you're in a vehicle that they are exposed, yes, you want to make sure they're protected.
the other thing is your transfer case.
Yep. Transfer case is obviously behind the transmission. If you're not familiar with how these things are lined up, transfer case is after the transmission. But yeah, you should protect that as well.
And then what do we got? Oh, your
engine, I think, would be the next thing on my list.
Yeah. I have an engine, transmission, all-in-one skid that I got aftermarket, but that and the control arm skids and my diff cover. And then I was debating, gosh, do I need to relocate my evap canister? Because that's sometimes when you have a JK, that's what you do. You can either get another skid. It does already come with, what the Rubicon comes with like a little skid. And knock on wood, watch, next time I go off-road, I'll like destroy it. But I have never, it's not dinged. I don't even think there's scratches on that one.
It's not easy to hit because it's, if I remember correctly, it's sort of like your rear drive shaft comes out of the transfer case and the evap canister is like right sort of above it and next to it. So if you're going to come down on something, you'd hit the drive shaft first. But if there's something that's sticking up in just the right spot and you come down, it's going to hit that evap canister. And if there's nothing protecting it, it's going to tear it off.
Yeah.
The factory skid is probably enough for most use cases.
Correct.
Right?
I would tend to agree.
But if you really get crazy in the rocks, or I mean, honestly, a thick enough tree branch could do this. A log.
Yeah. Or a tree, because I know at AOAA, there was a lot of tree stumps.
Tree stump would do it.
Yeah.
The time I saw it got ripped off was on a green trail at AOAA called Rock Creek. Now, I know there's a Rock Creek at Roush Creek, which is actually a pretty crazy trail. Rock Creek at AOAA is like a washed out area where you're driving in like some runoff. That's why they call it Rock Creek. You do cross a creek at the end of it, but it's kind of rocky, really challenging for a green trail, but I wouldn't quite call it blue. But that's where it happened. And it was a stick, I think.
Really?
Big enough stick had pushed itself up in there and ripped the thing off.
Huh.
It might be a blue trail now. Used to be green. This was a couple years ago. That trail's been degrading over the years.
Yeah, and that happens when people use it. Erosion, water.
Yep. Fun trail, though. I loved the first time I guided for the Jamboree. We took a guy through that in a Sahara, and he dented his fender flare, and he was pissed.
Yeah.
I was spotting him too, and I felt so bad. And the lead guide was like, "Don't worry about it. This is what they're here for. He'll calm down. He'll realize it's not a big deal, and you'll be fine." And sure enough, I saw him that night, and he's totally chummy with me. I'm like, "All right, cool. I feel so much better now."
It's funny sometimes people's first damage, they like panic.
Well, this was a Sahara, has those painted fender flares. They're real nice looking, and they just got this big dent right in it because he slid into a tree. And I could have spotted him away from it, and I tried to, but he slid. I mean, what was I going to do?
Well, and those Saharas, they come with those plastic steps. They're not sliders, they're steps. And in my trusty owner's manual, Jeep says if you take the Sahara off-road, you are supposed to take those steps off. And actually, the second time I went out with Kyle, that step, I damaged it. Thankfully, Kyle knew what he was doing, and he just kind of like pushed it back into place. But I should have taken him off because those steps can push into your body.
We have the same steps on ours. They're like a plastic, like a molded plastic.
Yep.
Yeah. We have a sport, but it's like a It's like an upscaled trim level of the Sport. Nothing really fancy, but it has the steps.
Yep.
And yeah, we hit it off a rock. It popped off of it. It has like the little brackets that hold it up. They're just like plastic welded together, and we popped it
Right.
off of the off of the mount. I had to bump it back down.
Yep. Yep.
We're gonna replace those someday. Haven't gotten there yet.
So
Did we
when you
talk
talk
about the engine? The engine skid.
Yep, I mentioned that.
Okay, engine skid. That right. Okay, so that kind of covers most of the undercarriage. Did we miss anything on the undercarriage?
No, I don't think on the undercarriage we didn't.
Does anybody...
sliders. I don't know.
Yeah,
if
that's kind of body. I don't know.
Body. Yeah.
Does anybody make like an exhaust skid? I've never really looked into that. My exhaust just takes a beating, and then I replace it when it needs to be replaced.
Yeah,
sliders work like skid plates. Skid plates, yes, that's true. Video says in chat there.
But yeah, when it comes to the body of your Jeep, which we were just talking about, the steps of the Sahara,
yeah,
taking them off is going to protect your body.
Video says that TNT makes
sliders.
TNT make. Is he talking about sliders? It makes exhaust skid. Okay, so what? Come on, Tammy.
Oh. That's what we're gonna have Tanner on. We're gonna have Tanner on. Hopefully next episode. I gotta talk to Tanner. I didn't know she has one on her green Jeep. Well, if she comes to the shop tomorrow. Erin is Bob and Mary's daughter. She has one of the lime green Jeeps. I guess I typically don't go underneath Jeeps and look. And not everything that we make is on the website yet, so we're still working on that.
So, I mean, I guess just to fill in on that, right? The exhaust is a thing that's worth protecting, although it's not the most vital of things. If you rip off your exhaust, your Jeep might run a little funny. I should say your vehicle in general might run a little funny. You may lose some sensors, which will make it run really bad, but it generally won't leave you on the trail. So, I don't know. Do you need exhaust skids? Maybe.
Well, I came down when I was on the Rubicon Trail, I think. I came down just right on a rock, and my exhaust went like this.
Oh, that happens to me all the time.
Yeah. So actually, you can't let it sit like that. So wherever the smush was, we cut it off.
Yeah.
Because that's no bueno.
Mine was like that for way too long. And
same with mine.
I finally cut it off. I cut it off. The factory exhaust on the LJ comes right under the bumper. So as you come down off of stuff, it's really easy for it to get smushed. And it was really, really pear-shaped.
Yeah.
I finally just took a Sawzall because it had like the exhaust I'd bought had like a, I don't know, 4 or 5 inch chrome tip at the end of it, which I never cared about because whatever. I finally just went ahead of the tip and cut it off at an angle and said, we're done.
Yep. Yep.
Which I will warn you, it has not happened to me, but I'm told that for a highway vehicle, if you do that, if you cut it off under the body somewhere, it could lead to exhaust fumes getting into the cab of your vehicle. I've not had this problem, but I did pay very close attention to it right after I did it. So just, caveat, if you're going to cut off your exhaust, keep that in mind. It should exit to the outside of the body somewhere. I've seen some people route it like out over the tire. I've seen some people route it out the side so that it's a little, out of harm's way. Just keep that in mind. I know that's not about skid plates, but I talked about cutting off exhaust, and that's just a thing you should know about.
Right.
Because carbon monoxide getting into your cab can kill you.
Unless you're topless, then you don't.
Sure. Well, there you go. If you cut off your exhaust, always take your top off, and then you'll never have a problem.
Right. There you go. So let's move up to the body of your vehicle.
Yeah.
And I think for Jeeps, I don't know about other 4x4 rigs if they have a body armor. I don't know if the Toyotas do or not. I'm not sure.
Number one thing I recommend to anyone who wheels anything, I don't care what it is, whether it's a pickup, a Toyota, a Ford, I don't care if it's a golf cart. The thing that you need to protect is right under your doors, those rockers. You need to have either steel plates on the body. You need to have sliders that bolt to the frame that protect that part. So many vehicles I have seen with dents under the doors. You get them bad enough, your doors won't close right anymore. And it's so easy to avoid by just putting, I mean, on a Jeep, well, a Jeep older than the JK, you literally just buy some stock angle steel and bolt it to the side of your body and you're done.
Right.
That's what I did to the LJ.
Because that's why they're called sliders, because then you'll
Yeah.
slide right over
And
those rocks.
I don't know that I've ever hit them. I don't think I've ever actually hit those on anything because I'm careful when I wheel, but it's really easy to do. You come down off a rock and bang.
You should see my sliders. Woo!
On
That's
the
on my
on the
driver's side,
YJ,
they're really bad.
on the YJ, I had some built by A to Z Fabrication, which was not just the angle, but it also had a tube step on it, and I loved them. They looked really great. I was at Roush Creek and I came off a little ledge that I thought was a little ledge, and it was actually a tremendous ledge. And
Yikes.
bang, right on the rock slider. The front tire never actually got to the ground. That's how far down the ledge was, because there was like a hole on the driver's side. The front driver tire was just hung there in the air, and I had to actually have somebody pull me off of it because it was right at the front corner of the slider. So yeah, right there, that would have been some severe body damage if I didn't have those.
So a couple things at TNT that we make, and I know other companies do as well, but is your corner armor, is the rear corner armor.
Mm-hmm.
And I have damaged mine. I got myself into a sticky situation. I was between a rock and a hard place. And I tore off my tail light and I dented that corner because I backed into a rock trying to get out of a sticky situation. But there are places, TNT Customs does, they make corner armor. So it depends on how serious you are.
Body damage builds character. Oh, Tammy just froze on me. Oh no! Come back, Tammy!
Just lost.
There you are.
Yeah. Whew, my whole screen just went boop.
I'm going to have to remember to edit that out.
Yeah.
See if I can mark that on my fancy mixer here.
4740.
4801 on my mixer.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
so corner armor.
Corner armor. Yes, corner armor is definitely a big deal. There's also a lot of people will replace their taillights.
Yes.
With either a flush mounted taillight or you can get a cage that goes around the taillight. I don't know I know that was really popular on like the TJ on back. I actually replaced mine with flush mounted LEDs, so they're not going to get hit unless I like back into a twig that sticks into them. But yeah, they were like a cage you could buy.
And they stick out, so sometimes if you could rip it right off if you hit a certain
on the JK they stick out just a little. On the JL they stick out further because they have those sensors. They have sensors on the side for backup alarms, right? So that's definitely a thing to think about. You want to protect those because if those sensors go out, I think I've heard of people that have damaged those sensors and the Jeep won't move. I could be wrong about that, but I thought I heard about someone that said that if the sensors are out of whack, the Jeep will go into some kind of a mode where it won't let you move.
I know there's a lot of things. I don't know specifically what in these newer vehicles, not just Jeeps, but trucks, whatever. Because it's so computerized, it will. Oh, he's finishing the last drop. Good to the last drop.
Sorry, it's so noisy. The whiskey stones in here are the cherry is left.
Oh, yum.
That's the best part. It soaks up all the alcohol.
Anyway, these computers are so sensitive. The littlest thing can just shut the whole vehicle down if you don't have.
Yeah,
I don't know. I can't think of a specific thing that it does. I think like even like if something's wrong in your engine, your remote start won't work. And
yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. So,
I had actually in the tow rig, I had a purge valve problem. The purge valve was sticking or something. I would occasionally get a check engine light until I finally narrowed down that it was the purge valve. I replaced the purge valve, and of course the problem's gone. But whenever that light was on, the remote start would stop working.
Yep.
Or whenever that failed the power on check, right, the remote start would fail. So yes, that'll definitely happen. If you have a check engine light on, the remote start won't work.
So the next thing, I think since you're a do-it-yourselfer more than I am, I think
Yeah,
I think
I
you
threw
should
this in
cover
here
this.
because I really considered building my own engine skid when I was thinking about an engine skid. And I actually had a plan and everything. I'd sketched it out. I was ready to start building the thing. And then I like really thought about it. When you buy materials and when you put in the engineering to actually design and build the skid plate, unless you have the tools and you have the skills already, or unless you really just want a project, right? Because how else are you going to learn? A lot of times it's a lot more cost effective to just buy someone who's
Mhm.
engineered it already, especially when it's something important like a skid plate. Because there's a lot of things that you need to think about when you're building a skid plate, like clearance for your drivetrain. And is it going to be too tight to the engine? Is it going to interfere with this or that, right? And an off-road shop will have done all that thought and all that work already. Now, am I telling you not to build your own skid plate? No. I'm saying that think about it, right? If you're going to build one yourself, think about whether you have the qualifications to build it yourself, because you may regret it and have to rebuild it 3 or 4 times
Mhm.
if you don't. Um,
And you don't want it to fail, and
what's the
then you're
channel
like,
I'm thinking
"Ooh."
about? Flawed Off-Road. I was talking with him, Dan from Flawed Off-Road, and he was building a skid plate. I think it was for his transmission, and it took him like 4 attempts. He said, I was about to throw it on the scrap pile and go buy one. That's how frustrated he was, but he was just determined to get it done.
Mhm.
So just keep that in mind, right? They're not easy to design. You could definitely, and you could mess something up. So, all right, there were a couple other things I wanted to touch on. We are almost at an hour already,
Oh, we can save the news for next week too.
and we did have some news. Maybe we'll give you highlights of the news, maybe. But the next question would be what material you should get skid plates made out of. There's a whole lot of thought that goes into saving weight nowadays, especially the
Mhm.
unsprung weight, the stuff that's on the body. So you're talking like
Mhm.
whether it's your skids or your body armor, whatever, right? The heavier the body is, the more top heavy the vehicle gets, the easier it is to roll over. Remember last week, Nate was talking about that Samurai and how it can go up crazy angles and it feels so stable. That's because he has Rockwell. Are they Rockwells? No, they're Unimog portal axles underneath the thing. They're ridiculously heavy. And then you put a Samurai on top, which weighs like 3 pounds, right?
How about?
So the thing is super planted because the axles and the drivetrain are so heavy, right? So think about that. That's unsprung weight versus sprung weight. Sprung weight is anything that's supported by the springs. The more body armor you put on a vehicle, the heavier the roll cage is, the heavier the drivetrain that is attached to the chassis is, the more top heavy that vehicle becomes. So it makes a whole lot of sense when you're thinking about those rock sliders or the body armor to get that stuff made out of aluminum. Or if you don't think you really, really need it, don't put it on because it's just going to make it heavier. The heavier that body is, the easier it's going to be
Mhm.
to roll that Jeep over or vehicle. I keep saying Jeep because it's what I know, but this applies to any vehicle because all vehicles are sprung.
Right.
Right. So that's one thing to consider. Aluminum is lighter. Usually, aluminum requires a thicker panel because it is lighter and it is a softer metal than steel. Aluminum can crack easier than steel, so that's a thing to keep in mind. So if you go with armor that is made of aluminum, it's usually going to be thicker, but it'll still be lighter because aluminum is just that lightweight of a metal. Let's see. The next thing I want to talk about was liners. Some skid plates, especially that are on the undercarriage, like the belly pan or the engine skid, will have a liner on the bottom of it that's made out of like a high density plastic called UHMW, ultra high molecular weight. I looked that up because I never really knew what it stood for. Or there's high molecular weight, which is, less ultra. But it's like a plastic liner that goes on the bottom of it that's designed to be beat up and replaced, right? Instead of beating up the steel. Which brings me to the very last point I wanted to talk about. Skid plates can be looked at one of two ways: built to last or a wear item that you replace every so many seasons. If you're going to really beat up your skid plates, you might want to think about building them out of something that maybe is cheap enough and lightweight enough that you don't mind replacing it every so many years, right? So just keep that in mind. Personally, I usually go with I want this thing built to last so I don't have to buy it several times. But, for a skid plate, I don't know. Unless it's steel and really beefy, you may have to think about replacing it. Maybe not every couple years, but maybe every decade or so. So just keep that in mind. These things take a lot of abuse.
And it's interesting to me, some of these just regular vehicles that come into our shop, and they have all that plastic underneath.
Yeah.
Like the whatever Hondas, Toyotas, or whatever, just your regular commuter cars. People think that plastic is there to protect from, driving over something on the highway and it like tears up. Well, I drove over something and I thought it would be fine, and it's plastic.
Yeah.
That's not a skid plate. And just like the air dam on the Jeeps, that's an air dam. It's not any sort of skid plate. It's there for miles per gallon. It's there to help keep the engine cool. So just be aware those aren't skid plates.
And I actually ran across some articles while researching for tonight that referred to those as skid plates. They are not skid plates. They are plastic. Unless they are backed by steel or aluminum or some other durable metal, they are not skid plates.
And you were probably reading that stuff on those. It's funny. It's interesting. All these auto blogger people, all these auto reviewers.
Yep.
They're just these young kids out of school that have not that I'm any expert, believe me, I'm not, but they have no clue.
Yeah.
What they're, and as we know, if we read any reviews about the Jeep, you always are like, no, you don't understand.
You don't get it.
Right.
You're reviewing the Jeep
as though it
were a Suburban. No,
right.
It's not a Suburban.
Right.
Or, I mean, you could say that about a lot of the Bronco too. Probably gets a lot of hate because the Bronco is also designed to be an off-road vehicle, although it has some more comfortable features of the suspension than the Wrangler does because they did independent suspension at the front. But I'm sure it's seeing similar hate from some of those outlets.
So yeah, before you really trust anything you see on the internet, just
consider the story.
Research, right? And then maybe reach out to somebody who actually owns the vehicle, who does go off-roading, and talk to them.
Right.
Right. Pretty much any of the Jeep off-road to Toyota off-roader podcasts, those are people who you'd probably want to talk to.
No,
I would anyway.
Listen to us.
Yes, only us.
Just the Off-Road Insiders podcast.
Right.
I mean, maybe those Jeep Cast guys.
Those Garys are pretty smart too.
We got to chat with him again. I
know.
I don't get to listen to podcasts like I used to, and I haven't I've completely lost track of their show, and I feel really bad about that.
All right. So I think we got protection down pat.
I think we covered it pretty well. If we think we missed anything, please let us know. If your favorite skid plate didn't get covered in our totally exhaustive and complete list of skid plates.
There you go.
And I'm sure every model of vehicle, similar to that evap canister on the JK, will have something like that, where it's like, oh, but on this specific model in these years, you have to protect this thing too.
Right.
We can't know all of those. Body armor. We talked about body armor videos. Mm-hmm. We talked about corner guards.
Corner guards.
Is that not body armor by your definition? Because
the rocker panels, some companies make the rocker guards
around the bottom of the doors. I've never seen armor on the bottom of the doors. Oh, I've seen it on the rocker guards. Yes.
Yeah.
We talked about that, man.
Yeah.
Listen up. Pay attention.
Okay. We can't play our
point. What's up with this?
Yeah. We can't play our music. We got a copyright tag on it, didn't we? Our Get Smart.
Oh, the Get Smart.
Yeah. So sorry folks, we can't play our music.
No, we can totally do that. Hold on. I don't care about a copyright flag. We're not monetized anyway.
Yeah, you need 1,000 subscribers and what, 16,000 hours a month? I can't remember.
I don't know. They keep changing them.
1,600 hours. Yeah.
All right, we'll stop that before we actually get a copyright flag.
Yeah.
I think it's like 30 seconds you can play without getting flagged. I don't know what it is.
Well,
Anyway.
you picked the news story, so I'll let you do the
Yeah,
news tonight, 'cause
let
I haven't
me-
read any of them.
Let me just look here. The first article is from the Gettysburg Times. Monster. It was a Monster. Let me look. I got to make sure I get this right. Rockstar energy drink, which is bottled by Pepsi, so it's actually a Pepsi thing. Are running a giveaway that you could get 20 grand and a Jeep Wrangler for your Memorial Day weekend.
Oh,
So check that out. That's pretty cool. I guess if you buy Rockstar Energy, there's some kind of code you're familiar with. Remember the old like twist off cap, and there'd be a you won underneath. We're really dating ourselves there. Now they're all
Yeah.
codes. You have to like
Yeah.
submit them through text
Q
or something.
codes and
Yeah. So at any rate, if you want to win 20 grand and a Jeep Wrangler, you should check that out. Go buy some Rockstar Energy. I don't drink energy drinks. I don't know about you, Tammy.
No, absolutely not.
Like Mountain Dew is the highest energy
I
drink
do-
I touch, or coffee.
I used to do that. No.
No,
Water
I've
is
never
my
touched
thing.
one. All right. This one is actually one I wanted to touch on. Jeep is finally committing to a full electric vehicle. The 2025 Wagoneer S will have a fully electric drivetrain. So I figure what they did is they offset the ridiculous expense of fully electric vehicles by putting it in their second most expensive vehicle that they offer. So that way people won't think it's as expensive. But yeah, I included an article here that talks about the model. They talk about some of the 0 to 60 times that they're trying to boast. They want this thing to not be like a dog on the street.
Right.
They want it to actually have some get up and go. You can read the article if you really want to go deeper on that, because we're already over time. We don't want to go 2 hours again. But yeah, the Wagoneer S, they already have a placeholder for it on the Jeep website, because I went there to look to see if they had pricing listed, and it's not there yet.
Those Wagoneers can be woo.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking, right?
Sticker
It's
shock.
like if it's going to be expensive anyway, let's just make it electric.
Yeah. Good Lord.
There's an article here about the most affordable hybrid off-road vehicle, which is kind of disappointing. It was the Toyota Highlander, I think. Let me look at it here. Yes, the 2024 Toyota RAV4 Woodland Edition is the most affordable hybrid off-road vehicle. And I'm going to say off-road in some quotes, because it's still a cute ute. You know, it's not like an actual off-road vehicle. And they even say in the article, like, you're not going to go rock crawling with this thing. But if you want, like, a vehicle you're going to take, I don't know, hunting or
Forest
fishing or forest roads, this might be good for you. And the sticker price is still 33 grand. 33 grand.
Crazy.
Not once have I spent that much money on a vehicle. It's crazy.
I can't say that I have. Well, technically I didn't, because up until for the first 14, 15, 16, first 3 years, I didn't pay for it because I didn't have a job. I was a stay-at-home mom and I was married. So yeah, you could say half.
Wait,
So
so what
yeah.
you're saying is you suckered your husband into paying more than 33 grand? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I took over the payments in 2016, so he paid half and I paid half.
Okay, I guess that
So-
makes sense.
And it was 44, I think, was the sticker price.
Yeah.
So yeah, I haven't paid over that. So
Our 4-door we bought used, and it had like 80 or 90,000 miles on it already.
and they're still expensive.
that was over 20 grand.
Yeah. Yep.
And that was, sorry, the dog's barking, but that was
He's like, show's over, Dad. I gotta go to the
Yeah.
bathroom.
that was like 5 years ago.
Uh-huh.
It was before COVID. So yeah.
Crazy.
And they've gotten more expensive since then. All right. What else did I have? There was a cool 4x4 plow truck that was turned into an overland, like tiny home.
Oh,
It's pretty
fun.
cool. Check that one out. There's a nice video. A couple lives in it, as you'd expect from these videos. We've covered a couple of these in the past. And what was the other one? Oh, Rivian. Rivian has filed
Here
a
we go
patent
again.
for a deployable
Oh,
rooftop
deployable.
canopy.
So what? It just like you push a button and it deploys
Yeah.
off.
It's like in
shoots
this.
off.
It's in this like thing on top of the Rivian. You push a button and it like folds out around it in like this big dome. It makes it, according to the patent pictures, it makes it look sort of like a flying saucer.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
It looks so
An
unusable.
umbrella, like those umbrellas.
It's
you
an
know, the
umbrella.
hats.
It
those
is a
umbrella hats.
Rivian umbrella hat. That's
Yeah.
exactly what this is.
Crazy.
I don't know what this is for.
In case
is
it
this
rains.
for?
In case
Does
it
it-
rains.
I don't know. Maybe they're not showing us all the pictures. Maybe it also pops upward, because I can't see how this would be useful otherwise. Because a vehicle, the Rivian, isn't that tall. Like, I might be able to stand underneath this canopy, but any average sized adult would probably hit their head on the canopy. What's the point?
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't get it. But it's just a patent they filed. It's not like they've got
Right.
a prototype or something. All right.
Huh.
The dog is definitely telling me. It's
Yeah.
time to
Time
finish
to
the
go,
show.
Dad. Time to go.
All right, and that's all the news. I know we like rifled through that, but you can always check the links in the notes for the show, and you can read all about them there. That's the whole reason we include the links. I don't think we planned a topic for the next show, did we, Tam?
I'm gonna try to see if I can get someone from TNT to join us.
Oh, that'll be cool. That'll be cool. If you folks know anybody in the industry or any even off-road YouTube channels that you would like us to try to reach out to and talk to, or heck, I'll take a TikToker at this point. If you know someone that's at least tangentially related to the off-road industry or overlanding or even camping or outdoors, let us know. And we'd love to try to reach out to them and chat with them. Or if you have already got a contact, send it our way. Send it to the offroadinsiders@gmail.com. Not the offroad. Sorry. The email address is just offroadinsiders@gmail.com. Send that our way. Comment on the video, whatever it is that you want to do to try to get a hold of us, and let us know who you'd like us to talk to. Because personally, I feel like interview shows go pretty well. And I think, maybe we can talk about YouTubing and genealogy with
Yeah.
every YouTuber on the planet.
My two favorite things. That was really fun.
YouTube.
I
and
could
genealogy.
have talked more about genealogy with him because
That
I've done
was
lots
fun.
of research on my family. Yeah.
That was fun.
So
My wife recently did a genetic study, and some of the crazy stuff that they were able to identify
Mhm.
about her, like that she doesn't like cilantro.
oh, I didn't know you could find that out.
Apparently, that's genetic.
I had no idea.
Who would have thought? And she actually doesn't like cilantro, and in the report is like averse to cilantro.
Huh.
What?
She's gonna have to send me where she found all that.
Well,
I'd be curious.
That one was one of our local healthcare providers was doing they're doing some kind of genetic research, and they reached out to her as a possible participant. I don't know
Oh,
why. I don't know how she got chose, because I'm like, I want to know what my
Right.
genetic study is. Dang it. Why? How do I get in on
Right.
this? She's like, I don't know. They reached out to me.
That's kind of cool.
But yeah, this wasn't like Ancestry or 23andMe or
Oh,
anything.
I was
This
like,
was
thought you just submitted your DNA and it will tell you you don't like tomatoes. You don't like
Yeah, right.
fish.
cilantro. That was the weirdest thing. It also said that she sunburns easy, which is totally true as well. Yeah, there's Tammy with
Me?
her red forehead.
Yeah, that's the Scandinavian in me.
Yeah. All right. I think it's time to wrap this up, Tammy. do you
Yep,
think?
yep. I think so. Time to. We're not going to go for 2 hours. We'll go
No.
for an hour and 15.
I don't know
So,
what
hour
we
and
would-
11.
I don't know what we would talk about for another 45 minutes.
Yeah,
I'm sure
no.
we'd think of something, though.
We could talk, but I'm sure people would start tuning out. Unless Nate with Dirt Lifestyle was here.
Yeah, he just jumps in all of a sudden. Hey,
Yeah.
guys.
Hey, I'm back.
That'd be cool. All right. Yeah. So thanks for tuning in. If you're watching live, thanks for watching live. If you want to watch us live, you should find us on YouTube. Look for the Off-Road Insiders podcast. If you can't find us, go to offroadinsiders.com and you'll be able to find us from there on all the different places that you can find us, which would be things like Instagram and Facebook. Just check out the Off-Road Insiders. Yeah, you can find me at swbcrawler.com. Tammy, where can they find you?
At jeepmama.com, JEEPMOMMA.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I think I already said that, but I'm just trying to waste time until I switch to the right tab here where I can actually click the button for the music. Folks, we'll catch you next time.
Have a good night, day.